1502. Chair lays out House Bill 1502 and recognizes it. Chairman King offers up a committee substitute to House Bill 1502. The chair recognizes Representative Noires to explain his bill. Thank y'all for coming.
Yes, thank you. This is a sunset bill, and it will adopt a public engagement for water. Well, hold on a second. Yeah, it's for water supply projects, and basically what it does, it re-ups Lower Colorado River Authority. It gets them moving. They're a river authority, and we had some testimony. It's very similar, if not almost identical, to the bill that Ms. T presented to us about 20 minutes ago. So with that, I yield any questions.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions regarding this? Okay. Okay, let's go to testimony. Huh? Okay, the chair calls up Phil Wilson, Andrew Weir, and Michelle Gangdis. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting better. Michelle, you want to come up?
Are you speaking on the bill, or you?
I'm in favor of the bill.
Okay.
Michelle, why don't you lead us off?
Sorry, I'm slow. Good afternoon, Chairman Larson and committee members. My name, for the record, is Michelle Gangnis. I am a landowner in the tiny community of Blue and Lee County, and I'm here today for myself and as a board member for the Simsboro Aquifer Water Defense Fund and for Neighbors for Neighbors. I am a 20-year board member of that organization, one of the original grassroots aquifer protection organizations. SAWDF, Simsboro Water Defense Fund, grew out of the community, which has recently been on the receiving end of the deficient performance by the LCRA's upper management, which HB 1502 purports to cure. I'm not the first to make the connection between those deficiencies and the fundamental disconnect between LCRA and my community, that will persist as long as the LCRA persists in serving private special interests with the ill-advised, irresponsible Bastrop County groundwater project. The bill should address 3 additional things, which I think you'll hear from me as well as from others. My written comments hopefully will help you understand where we're coming from. We have a situation that's been 20 years in the making over the Simsboro Aquifer, which the Simsboro Water Defense Fund serves in an advocacy and education capacity. LCRA should not be in the business of developing and marketing groundwater at the expense of an aquifer, at the expense of a river they're supposed to protect, and the property rights of others.
Ma'am.
Yeah, if you could hold. Yeah.
Sorry, I believe she's off the bill now.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
has nothing to do
Focus on the sunset provisions of the bill.
That has nothing to do with the bill.
I'm asking that the sunset bill be amended to include 3 things.
We can't do that. That's policy. The bill is about, not policy, it's about the agency and how it's run.
Yeah.
How about I can give you the other 2 and you see if I'm off the bill?
Yeah, just try to stay focused on what it says in the sunset bill and the recommendations that are provided as far as the management practices. That's actually a germane. So the discussion needs to stay within those lanes if you're going to testify.
Well, I will ask one thing that the.
Ma'am, I apologize. It's just in other words, for the bill. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you'd want a point of order called on it.
I just want the bill. I just want to make sure that the way the rules work in the committee is we just testify on the bill, and in this case, the bill is about not rulemaking authority, but it's the agency itself, and not necessarily what it can do. And this issue with permits, I believe that's a separate issue completely. And so it doesn't have anything to do with the bill.
It's the issue of those permits that caused those deficiencies to come of record at the Sunset Commission. It seems to me germane if the bill didn't go far enough to correct those deficiencies.
I believe I was in the sunset, and I believe that was also pointed out that those things are mutually exclusive to the sunset process. They have to do with the agency itself and not sunset.
Is it appropriate to ask you to bring them back in 2 years rather than in 12 years as the Senate bill now reads?
It would be appropriate to ask, but not here. In other words, if we do that as a separate bill And it's appropriate. The question's never inappropriate. It's where you're asking it is it's appropriate.
Actually, I'm asking that it not be changed within the bill at the moment because they will have to come back in 2 years if I understand that they're not subject to abolishment. So they would be coming back in 2 years. The Senate bill was amended to give them the 12-year period of an agency that could be abolished. I'm simply asking that you not accept any amendment that would do that.
That would be proper as long as you stay away from the other part. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm searching for one that you'll.
Yeah, I think what
germane.
the sunset bill, just focus on what the recommendations are. It didn't, basically, this isn't a venue to complain about the agency, about their practices as far as, what have they done that was detrimental to a community. What we're talking about is they've laid out, they want more transparency, the reporting aspects of it. Talk about the recommendations there. If there was something specifically about that groundwater that was in a certain county, that wasn't a part of the purview of the.
The fact that they didn't speak to the community at all about a permit of that size is not germane to their practices.
Yeah, I mean there's another form that, and that's when permits are being issued for any groundwater anywhere in the state. So just focus on.
I will again ask you not to allow them to extend the period with which they are not reviewed.
From 12 years to 2 years. Yeah.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have submitted written comments to y'all, and you can read through some of that. Realizing the restrictions that I'm hearing being placed on the comments right now, I'll skip to the last paragraph on page number 1. The LCRA is established by the state of Texas. It's subject to sunset review. Oh, let me say, my name is Andy Weir. I'm opposed to this bill, House Bill 1502, and I speak on behalf of myself as a citizen in Bastrop County. The LCRA is a government agency, and it plans to take water without any consideration of my rights, and that's wrong. It's created to protect and manage the Colorado River, and even the LCRA states that in their own history. There's no mention of groundwater in their establishing clause.
Chairman,
unfortunately, I'm going to connect the dots in one sentence.
I apologize, but I've got a job to do, and I have to be as objective as I can, and not because I disagree or agree with your position, but what you're testifying about has nothing to do with the bill. It's something that, let me just finish just real quick. It has something to do with, and we heard it in the committee, and I don't agree or disagree with you one way or the other on this, and that's somewhat odd, but I really don't. But that's fodder for something else and not this. And I understand you, but this has nothing to do with that.
I have plenty on the subject.
Well, let's get on that then.
Okay. So the LCRA needs the Texas legislator to set them on a straight and narrow course. Okay? The bill before you does not address the connection between groundwater development and the lack of transparency that was noted by the Sunset Commission and the Advisory Board. Let me connect the dots. The gross lack in transparency for which the Sunset Advisory Board took the LCRA to task is most evident when the LCRA strayed from their river mission into groundwater development. The LCRA follows a very different public engagement process when they do transmission lines, power generation, or managing the lakes and river flows or floods. They were lauded for their public engagement in the most recent flooding. When the LCRA began their foray into groundwater, however, they acted without regard for hundreds of citizens clearly in harm's way. After their initial bad press, they published an op-ed piece that basically said, "Trust us, we're the government. And if you don't trust us, too bad, we bought the water rights." Signed, Phil Wilson. You remember that op-ed piece, yeah. All right, so tell me, what other state agency shows such disdain for the citizens negatively impacted by their policies? In my experience, this dark side or lack of transparency only appears in the LCRA in relation to the groundwater project. The LCRA rebuffed efforts by our state representative, John Cyrier, to organize a meeting with landowners. Then the LCRA sought an Attorney General's ruling to keep their groundwater plans secret, even though the permitting process requires they lay their cards on the table. On the morning of the Sunset Advisory Board's public hearing, when they were harshly criticized, this government agency took out a full-page ad in the newspaper stating they would only sell their groundwater in Bastrop, Lee, and eastern Travis counties. Now imagine that. The morning of the Sunset hearing, magically, there is no
Mr. Chairman,
need for
I'm
secrecy.
gonna have to object again because you're doing it again, sir, and I'm asking nice. Like, the testimony you're giving has nothing to do with the bill. It has to do with the permitting process, which is completely different, and I feel for you. And it's not my position to shut you down. I'm just pointing it out because at some point it is gonna bother me, and I'm not gonna be so nice because I'm asking nice.
Yes.
And I'm willing to step outside and talk to you about it as long as we can when I'm done with this, and I'll even help you on that side. But in this side, I cannot help you because I have a job to do, and that's this bill, not the permitting process. Does that make sense? And I'm as good as my word. I will help you on the other thing, but on this, I'm intractable. How's that?
Okay.
All right, thanks.
And I'm telling you, so the relationship, the connect the dots, the times that you see the gross lack of transparency, the disdain for public, is only when the LCRA was engaged in this groundwater process. That's what they were noted for and taken to task for. That's why the two are related, and why all we're asking, and I want to encourage you to amend in this bill, which you have the ability to do, clarify the mission for the LCRA. The establishing language lacks specific words that limit them to surface water management. If you if you clarify for them that they would be prohibited from groundwater development, you will see a more transparent agency. If you urge them in this direction, then they have no reason to engage in these policies.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to tell you again, and it's not so nice. You're still talking about groundwater permits, and we're not going to do that in this bill. It has nothing to do with this bill. No more connecting the dots.
No, sir, I'm not talking about permits. I'm talking about a mission creep. And so when they left their mission to manage surface water,
you know what? I'm wrong.
Their lack of transparency.
I apologize for interrupting you. I thought I was speaking English and telling you and asking you nice. I apologize. Keep going.
I have one last sentence. Thank you. Please keep big government from violating property rights of its citizens. Help the LCRA do what it does best for the benefit of all Texans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody have any questions for Andrew? Phil Wilson, could just state your name, organization.
And Mr. Chairman, before we start, I apologize. I want to keep the bill. You understand?
Yeah, I understand. The sunset deal, it's a different deal. Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Larson, members of the committee, my name is Phil Wilson. I'm General Manager of the Lower Colorado River Authority. I'm here today to testify in favor of the committee substitute for House Bill 1502. I would like to begin by thanking Chairman Navarez for his leadership on the Sunset Advisory Commission and his authorship of the legislation. Sunset staff conducted a thorough review of our water operations and other functions of LCRA. Over the course of the review, LCRA staff engaged in 51 meetings with Sunset staff, responded to nearly 300 requests for information, and produced more than 450 documents. Obviously, a very thorough process. I will not restate the major provisions of the committee substitute for HB 1502, as Chairman Navarez did an excellent job of explaining what the bill does. I would like to note, however, that LCRA is already taking action to implement the proposed new statutory provisions. For example, our board has already implemented a new policy that provides an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board on any subject during any of the board scheduled meetings, including committee meetings of the whole. We are also updating our existing training for new board members in keeping with the provisions of the committee substitute, and will soon begin going live with the new process for receiving complaints from the public and providing updates on our actions to address those complaints. Finally, we are working on developing a policy for enhanced public engagement, whether we pursue any new water supply projects, as well as we use the good government standard for alternative dispute resolution. The Sunset Advisory Commission also approved 17 management recommendations. and we're well on our way to implementing all those recommendations in accordance with the schedule prescribed by the Sunset Advisory Commission. Before I conclude, I wish to express our appreciation to Sunset Advisory Commission Chairman Senator Brian Burnwell and Vice Chairman Chris Patty for the superb management of the review process. The Commission members and the Sunset staff conducted a highly professional review of LCRA, and we're very pleased to appear today in full support of their recommendations as contained in the committee substitute for HB 1502. With that, Mr. Chairman, please answer any questions the committee may have.
Anybody have any question for Mr. Wilson, Representative Ramos?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to use Ford Price's mic here. How long have you all been in existence, the Lower Colorado River Authority?
84 years.
84?
Yes, ma'am.
84 years?
Yes, ma'am.
You just said you're working on developing enhanced community engagement.
Well, for the groundwater section in particular, we want to make sure that we're doing our very best all the time. And enhance is making it better. That's our goal.
But it's taken you 84 years to make it enhanced?
Well, when someone calls you out to say you would improve, we would like to improve. That's the recommendation involved.
And so what are, have there been concerns prior to the enhancement?
No, ma'am.
No concerns?
No, ma'am.
From individuals? You just decided to enhance it
No,
based on the
I'm
sunset
trying to, I
recommendation?
may have misunderstood your question. As individuals in this process brought concerns up, particularly related to the conversation had today, we'd like to improve that process. And we're in the process of doing it right now so that we're better and can improve that for the public as far as participating in conversations, having a dialogue, getting the feedback from communities as a whole.
Well, I certainly hope, and it appears this bill is going to allow you all to do that or encourage you all to do that, but there appears to be, maybe not everybody has felt part of the conversation, and I look forward to hearing more of the positive results of this new enhanced community engagement.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Phil, I know that y'all have your challenges with the Highland Lakes. We've got groups that don't want the water released. You've got pressure in the middle where you've got restricted resources, so you're having to go find new resources. You built an off-channel reservoir downstream so you can reconcile the issues with some of the agriculture communities down there. And then in the lower basin, you have industry that wants water as well. So it's a tough job. I think everybody in the River Authority business, including the Brazos, the big rivers, where you've got a lot of customers, y'all are having to find other resources. The Brazos is merged into groundwater management as well because they don't have enough water in the basin to permit, and so they're growing. I like the fact that you're going to the system that Representative Ramos talked about as far as the enhanced outreach. Obviously, no one that I've ever, any meeting I've ever attended where permits were being issued, people weren't patting the people on the back saying thank you for getting permits to the water. It's a very contentious, adversarial type of role that has to be played, but you have to follow the rules.
Yes, sir.
You have to follow the rules. There's water that's allocated to that land. And then if you've secured that land, that you make sure that you're not doing anything that would have an adverse impact on your neighbors. So
yes, sir.
It's a tough issue, and we've heard a lot of people in this committee over the last 8 years have there's concerns about the growth of corridors and people accessing other things. So I think the outreach that you're talking about, it's going to be more important in the future than it is today. So
yes, sir.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have any questions for Phil or any other of the panelists? Okay, thank y'all, all three. Appreciate it. Oh, you have one more. Okay, James Lee Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wait a
I'm
minute, hold on a
testifying.
second. And Cyrus Reed, too. Cyrus, you want to come up? Cyrus here. Okay. Go ahead, James.
I'm James Lee Murphy. I'm testifying on behalf of myself and the League of Independent Voters in opposition to this bill, specifically 2 points. The Sunset, I have a handout that I'm not going to read in the interest of time, but the Sunset Commission found that LCRA is a sophisticated, well-functioning organization, yet the report failed to address what it functions for and whom it serves. We think that's a key omission in the report. Similarly, the Sunset Commission noted tension between LCRA and property owners east of Austin who were concerned about pumping and export of groundwater, but they mischaracterized the issue as lack of transparency. For those reasons, we feel that the legislation is defective. What I've hired you is something that could be added as a floor amendment, according to at least my understanding of your House rules. And I would note only that we have no personal objection to LCRA's management or any of the folks who are working there, but it's a serious policy issue that we should not be focusing on things like transparency or how to engage people, when we should be more concerned about what is LCRA doing and how we can make decisions that include the people we're engaging in the discussion. Thank you for your allowing me to testify, and hopefully the Honorable Representative Navarez will make his airplane.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Murphy? Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on for or against House Bill 1502? Hearing none, the chair recognizes Representative Navarez to close on House Bill 1502.
I close, and I've got another bill to lay out, but I'd like to speak with both of you in the back. And I tell you, I'm as good as my word. If you want to talk about groundwater, we'll have at it, because I like groundwater. But I appreciate you coming to testify. I really do. I want to make sure that this is one thing and the other thing's another thing.
I like, a lot of times when people say, I'll meet you out back, I probably wouldn't want to meet them.
No, there's a good meeting out back.
Oh, okay, well, good. I just wanted to frame it right. Yeah. Is this time the chair?
That sounded a little ominous.
Yeah,
No,
it
wasn't
did,
like that.
yeah. This time the chair withdraws the committee substitute to House Bill 1502. House Bill 1502 will be left pending at this time.